For what values of x is the above equation true? So in this case, essentially it's saying that solve for x, right? What values of x make these equations true? And whenever you come across something like this, you always want to make sure you try factoring first. And in order to factor, you want to put it in standard form, right? So we're going to go ahead and put this into standard form right here, which basically means we have to get rid of this x and set it equal to 0. So I'll rewrite the expression here: x squared minus 5 is equal to x, and then I'll subtract x from both sides, and that'll leave me with x squared minus x minus 5 is equal to 0. So we have to factor here, and you'll find pretty quickly that it's difficult to factor this by hand. So this doesn't factor very cleanly. You can try a number of different methods, but before you do that, you should always take a look at your solutions. And we see that all of our solutions are essentially in the form that they would take if we were to solve it using the quadratic equation. So in this instance, solving it using the quadratic equation is going to be our best bet of putting the answer in this particular form here. And recall that our quadratic equation is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And if you don't know this equation, you should learn this equation. There's a little song you can sing to remember it. It goes to the tune of Farajaka, and it's actually a kind of a cute song. So if you don't know it, you should know it, or you should learn it. Or you can just memorize the equation. It's going to come in really handy on the SAT. So let's go ahead and just start assigning values here, right? So our a value and b value and c values are going to be as follows. So it's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That's the form it takes. So a is the coefficient in front of the x squared, b is the coefficient in front of the x, and c is our constant here. So in this equation right over here, our a is equal to 1, our b is equal to negative 1, right? Because that's a negative 1 right there. And our c is equal to negative 5. And so let's go ahead and start plugging it in. And be very careful about plugging in your plugging in the negative numbers. So I do this in a very specific way using parentheses to make sure that I don't make any silly mistakes. So here's how I do this. A negative b, so that's going to be negative 1 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's negative 1 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 5, all over 2a. So 2 times 1. And now it's very easy for me to solve this, and I do this step by step, right? So this right here is going to be negative 1 is positive 1, plus or minus, square root right here, negative 1 squared is equal to 1. And then this right here, negative 4 times 1 times negative 5 is equal to positive 20, because we have two negative signs here. So plus 20 all over 2 times 1, which is equal to 2. And this will simplify as 1 plus or minus the square root of 21 over 2. And do any of our answer choices take that form? And yes, in fact, letter B does. So our correct answer is B for Batman.